Call the meeting to order, rise for pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This morning, we'll open up the meeting with public comment. Is there public comment? Seeing none, we just have to go to the approval of minutes for January 2nd, 2019.
No,
Did you,
no, okay. I think somebody raise their hand. Go
did
ahead.
you want to go ahead with that?
I can do that.
Okay, let's
You
do
want to
it.
do that at this time?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So I was just handed this, so I'll read this. And this is concerning our commission meeting agenda and public notice, something that we are working on. And we will have something probably, hopefully in the next couple of weeks for everybody to read. But this is from Bobby and the Broadwater Reporter. So the Montana law and the process we work with Broadwater County recognizes the Broadwater Reporter as the local newspaper of record. Local government is required under 7/1/2121 of the MCA to provide public notice and meetings and agendas. Many citizens of Broadwater County depend on the Broadwater Reporter to be informed and to have the opportunity to participate in the decision-making process. For the past 5 years, we have operated under a 5 p.m. Monday deadline for submission of the county meeting notices to be published. The newspaper goes to press on Tuesday mornings. During the January 2nd commission meeting, the commission discussed moving the commission agenda and county public meeting submissions to the Broadwater Reporter to Wednesdays at 1 p.m. By doing this, it would be impossible for Broadwater Reporter to publish notices to the public through the paper. Therefore, Broadwater Reporter will be making some changes to the publication process. We're now moving our public notice submission deadline to 2 p.m. on Wednesdays of each week. The newspaper will now be delivered on Fridays. Thank you for working to coordinate the proper notice in the weekly publications of Broadwater Reporter. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Bob.
One thing that I guess I want to say, and this was for public comment. I was called and informed that someone would be here to discuss the building that was given to Mr. Stewart. And everybody's here that can answer those questions. I don't know, we want to talk about that or not?
I don't know what you're talking about, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so I was called and asked why the building was given to Mr. Stewart. It's my understanding that this, maybe Ed can give us a better background of how this all transpired.
Sure. In 2008, the Forest Service had an excess property building that the fire district got a hold of through the Forest Service. It was given to us to get erected and use it as a fire department storage building. We got it, it was brought down here to Townsend. We got it, moved it out to Duck Creek. We were gonna try to build it out there. It was cost prohibitive for us to do it, to make it up to code for a fire station, so we did not get it erected there. We erected another one, a new building. And then we brought it down. The county road had talked to me wondering if they could put it up, and I said, sure, you can put it up as long as we can store fire apparatus in it, some sort of fire apparatus. That never came to fruition either because of the cost. And then Mary had contacted me and said that she had someone that was interested in putting the building up. So I talked with Mr. Stewart, and he agreed that we could put some fire apparatus in there. And that's the only thing that we had to do with that building, was make sure we could store fire apparatus in it. So that's where it's at. The building has always been for the fire district. The county has never owned it, and the fire district could do with it whatever they wanted to, as long as we were storing some fire apparatus in it. So that's kind of where it sits, and that's where it's it's at right now.
Okay, and then that's the intention, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that's not intended to change in the future,
Nope.
okay?
Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, and the other thing I guess I want to bring a point is, how long did this building sit in the county yard prior to this?
Well, we've had it for 10 years. I think it was out at Duck Creek for about 1, and then we brought it to the
Okay.
county yard.
So it's been kicking around for quite a while, right?
Yes.
We're finally getting an opportunity to
Get it erected.
get it erected
used,
and have
yes.
some use out of it.
Yes.
All right, very good. Anybody else?
Yeah, the only question I have about it is, Ed come over and talked to me one time about it, and said that there's a federal guy that inspects that building and sees where it's at and what's in it, make sure fire stuff. So I was, between me and him, I was under the impression that if it was on my land, I wouldn't own that building.
Correct.
It would be the federal building. Well, I have a little problem with putting out, I have the blueprints all drawn up for the foundation and everything on it. But I haven't done nothing, because I don't know whose building this is.
All right. I mean, I'll let you guys work out those details. I just wanted to get these questions answered in public, to make sure that everybody knew that there was nothing going on behind the scenes, people doing something they shouldn't do. And Corey, you were aware of this as well, right?
Is this what we talked about the other day?
Yep, the building.
So current status is it's in pilot your place, is that correct? Okay. So Ed and I have talked about this a couple times, and I think, I'm trying to remember if you gave me some paperwork that on a contract or an easement, does that sound right?
I did with Mr. Stewart, yes.
Right.
We were working on that. I'm presently working to see if I can come up with a copy of the original agreement with the Forest Service. But since, when I went in and talked to them, I think it was 2 days later, they went on furlough. I haven't been able to come back there or find anybody since, so.
What year was that?
It was in 2008.
2008.
All right, very good. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment about the letter that Daryl read at the beginning of the meeting?
Yeah,
There are no notices. The notice at the school is dated December 17th, and there is nothing at the post office. Just so you know. For today's meeting.
wasn't this agenda in the paper 2 weeks ago?
It was never submitted. We never got one submitted to the newspaper.
For the,
Today.
this was submitted like before the January 2nd meeting?
January 2nd meeting was in the paper, so if
They're
there's
both
one
on the
in
same
there,
agenda
then there we
sheet.
are.
Oh, it wasn't there last week.
That's only 2 weeks.
So I was wondering if that resolution on taxes was gonna be today or next week, so I was looking for the agenda Friday, and it wasn't posted in the courthouse. So, I know there was originally an agenda last week that had, I think, last week's and today's stuff on it. But it was down sometime before Friday, because it wasn't, and I looked Friday, couldn't find it on the agenda.
Well, it was put in the prior week because we couldn't get it in on Monday because Monday was the holiday and our next meeting was on Tuesday. Monday was the deadline to have it put in. So we put it in at the same time we put in the meeting for the 2nd. The agenda for the 7th was put in at the same time.
Okay, and so is it just the agenda that was that one time? Because we were looking for a revised agenda, and Michelle said she hadn't.
No, we're
sent
just
one out.
working off the same agenda, there's no revised agenda.
Okay, so somewhere in there, someone had taken it off the bulletin board on the 2nd floor, or I guess the 1st floor. So,
Probably nobody should be doing that.
right.
We'll move on to the approval of minutes for January 2nd, 2019.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Before, I apologize, but before you move on the issue of the building, you know, there's been questions asked by several people about the status, and we understand that it is not being transferred to private ownership. It's been retained under the agreement with the Forest Service, that it would be used for the rural fire district, which is an elected body, a subdivision of the state, to keep within the community. What the questions have been being asked that I've heard a lot of is if that building is going to go through a 5-year period before it becomes transferable under the original verbal agreements that I've heard. Again, I think Ed said he couldn't get a hold of the original agreement in writing, but what we've heard is the agreement will continue for 5 years of putting the building on private property. But talked to Corey myself, and one of the things that we've talked about, and even Ed has been on part of that conversation, is a contract or an agreement with Jeff needs to be in place in order to maintain that 24/7 access to that building. And when you have private property and access routes that are in question, those things got to be ironed out. And again, one last thing, Mr. Chairman, I've had people saying if that building is going to become available for just, the fire storage under the district, again, which is a subdivision of the state, then what we need to do is make sure that that goes through the process, making sure that everybody that goes through there, because that building is probably, if you get right down to it, it's got a value of quite a bit of money once it's put back together. And we need to just make sure that we're on the front page in the county here. Different ranchers have talked about, hey, I could certainly use a building that size myself and be more than glad to store it, but nothing ever happened with a public process. So that's why we've been asking the questions, and we hope to keep the front page with the light on so everybody knows what's going on. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
And I would think that that's pretty much up to the district, because the building has never belonged to the county.
Well, again, Mr. Chairman, the Rural Fire District is an elected body as well. So they are a subdivision of the state under those same provisions of notice and public participation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So my recommendation going forward, and I think I may have told Tim this, I don't recall, I told a couple of folks. So, number one, we've had this thing for 10 years, and as far as I know, it hasn't been put up and used in 10 years, right?
No.
So it's been more of a kind of in the way thing really than this is not the Taj Mahal of Broadwater County. So if someone wants to put it to productive use, that's probably a good thing. What I've asked for is whatever the restrictions are from the federal government when they transferred it to the fire district on what it can be used for, we'll obviously, I'll recommend that they honor those restrictions. My guess is that there might be a time limit on that they're not in perpetuity, but I don't know that. I haven't seen the documents. What I plan to do is when they confirm that is, if it's gonna be put on someone's private land specifically for the use of the fire department, then it would be an easement that would be needed, so that the fire department could come in and whether they gotta store stuff, whether they have to dress up in the middle of the night, whether they have to do maintenance on trucks, whatever they gotta do, they would need an easement to be able to get in there, and obviously that would be a condition for that to be placed somewhere. And then whether, if it's a permanent restriction on transfer of private property, I mean, Jeff's entitled to know that, right, before he takes it, or else he's basically permanently given a chunk of his land to the county, to the district. So I think he needs to know that and be fair to him up front. And then if it's an exchange where he donates an easement for 10 years, and that's value of the land or whatever, I mean, I see that as something that the district's ultimately gonna have to vote on. But I think once we get that paperwork, I owe these guys a little work on putting together an easement, and then it'll have to come to a public decision. But certainly in terms of the landowner, I think it needs to be fair to him, he needs to know what he's getting into. So he hasn't permanently signed over a chunk of his land to the public. So, that's my thought.
I agree.
What?
Put it on the front page. Transparency is beautiful.
Okay, so we'll move on to the approval of minutes for January 2nd, 2019.
I will move to approve said minutes as presented.
Did we make some changes to those minutes?
No, just, not to these ones, no.
Okay.
The, any edits that you do during the week, you send to Ann, and Ann is the final say.
All right, I second the motion.
Motion's been made and second to approve minutes from January 2nd, 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. We can go on with the commissioner's update. Let's see, I attended the THS board meeting and the fire district's Christmas dinner. And also we had a discussion with the Helena Solid Waste and Public Works Department on our interlocal agreement for the solid waste division on Friday, about equipment sharing with them. One thing I will say about the fire district Christmas dinner was excellent food, and one thing I noted was there's a significant number of younger people there, and I'd like to thank Ed and those guys for getting younger people involved in that. It would be nice if we would see younger people in more of our organizations. Seems to be a pretty good younger group there, so I'm hoping that continues with our emergency service volunteer people, because we need all of them we can get. So thank you, Ed, for the work that you do there.
Thank you guys for coming.
I also was at the interlocal agreement discussion with City County, talking about what some of the things they can do for us as far as loaning equipment. I thought that was excellent. I learned a lot. Also had a meeting with the PR team and a personnel team. Just for the interest of public disclosure, we did have Bernadette come into the office and wish us all a Happy New Year, and she provided treats. It was no county business, just ministerial. Mike Conkey came in to advise us, or just update us on the airplane accident that happened last week. And Mike Myers came in to talk to us about a broken washing machine in the detention center and issues with that warranty with Sears. I think that's it.
Well, I'm still kind of getting my feet wet, so, but I did attend the THS board meeting as well, and the solid waste meeting that the other commissioners did. I think it was interesting about the solid waste meetings, we had both people from Lewis and Clark County and the city of Helena, and they have a lot of knowledge and have been doing this a long time, and it was great to listen to what they had to say and some of the advice they had for us moving forward with our solid waste issues that we're going to be facing here shortly.
Was Nicole in?
I saw her this morning. She should be
I
here.
did talk with her. She wasn't planning to come down till 10:30 when we were out.
Yeah.
Everybody's smeary. They're just That's because he's going to the legislature. He's got his press pass for the board at House 77. And so he's going to go. I'm going to
She was in
finish
her
up
office.
the camera.
I did talk with her.
Was she up there?
We could do mail until
We
she
have a
gets
little bit of
here.
mail. Let's see,
She's
we
probably
have
making copies, is my guess.
I think that's what they said.
Federal Licensing Incorporated Renewal Modification Division for the FCC.
I didn't know what that was, so I sent a email to Charlie about that. He said that is a solicitation and it's for the 911 system. So probably something we should make a copy and get to the sheriff's office.
Okay.
But it's not anything we need to do
It's
anything
not
about.
anything we need to do, but it's
Right.
8th annual CASA of Lewis and Clark and Broadwater County's Light of Hope. March 2nd, 2019, at Helena Civic Center. See Rural Montana Magazine and the Verizon Wireless bills. TD&H Engineering, a calendar for 2019. That's pretty much the mail.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question about mail. For the trust board, the Broadwater County Trust Board has its own mailbox up there. And I've never had anything open before. Not that everything we do is transparent. But last week there was something already opened, and I thought that was odd. What's, just so I know the process or who opens the mail? And it clearly said Broadwater Trust.
Yes.
I don't know about that one, Deborah, but a lot of times stuff will come in that just says Broadwater County and it has
Right,
to be
of course.
opened.
Of course.
And I don't know if that's what happened with
No,
that.
it said
one.
Broadwater Trust Board.
Okay, and so I don't
Okay.
know the answer to
Okay.
that, but,
No, it's just, it was odd,
mhm.
because I've never had a statement from First Premier opened or anything.
You know, unless somebody,
So I don't know who gets the mail or who divides it.
unless
up.
somebody thought it was Broadwater County, I
Right,
don't know the
okay.
answer to that one, but.
So typically it's not open.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. No, exactly. Sorry. I hope you don't do it.
Those folks were lucky they get that notice.
I'm not aware of any. They're good. Yeah.
While we're waiting for Nicole, I have a question. You guys saw the email this morning. You may not have, Daryl, because it came after you got here and you don't have a computer yet, which will be remedied hopefully soon.
Yeah.
But, and I have this here for you. It's Senate Bill 35. What that is a bill to make county commissioners responsible for forming a disciplinary review team for at-risk youth, potential youth to be sent to detention or seeking alternatives to detention, works with the youth court. The superintendent of schools, which would be Doug, would be responsible for filing a report with the state as to what the commissioners did in forming this, what the bylaws say, who the members are, how it's operating. There's a whole slew of things in there that are part of the agreement. The question from NACO this morning was, is this appropriate for county commissioners, since we are not the justice arms of the counties? We are the ones who sign all the contracts and agreements, but is this stepping outside of our responsibilities? So what I was wondering is with that, are you guys good with following NACO's lead on how we should proceed as a commission? And the reason I ask that is if we want to testify on this, it would be nice to have, yes, this is how the commission feels, or not. So I don't necessarily think we need an answer today, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention so that it's something we can respond to efficiently and quickly if we have
Sure.
to.
Sure, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I'll pass this on too. This is Melinda handed this to me. It's, you know, she's been working on this PEERS program. And I don't know where she's at in the process, but developing that, but, so I'm
Okay.
sure she'll probably tell us more about it.
all right.
Okay, Nicole, you're up.
And I apologize, I had it written on my calendar to be here at 10:30, and then I glanced at the agenda and I was supposed to be here 15 minutes ago. Really sorry.
It gave us time to have a good discussion, so thank you.
Good. I'll be brief. There's just a couple of them here. So in this packet, you have the cover page showing the vacancies for each board, along with any interested applicants or applications that I've received. I have also, this is just a continuation of last year, left a line in there for each of you commissioners to fill in if you would like to be a liaison to that board. So not a board member, but simply attend the board meetings. So I'll just go over this quickly. The first one, and I don't know that I have them in order, but you do have a letter of interest from Al Christofferson in your packet there. With this trust board vacancy, I had suggested to the commission that you appoint Al Christofferson for a 1-year term at last year's meeting of the same, these board appointments. However, it was pointed out, and Al noticed, or identified it in his letter as well, that the trust board bylaws allow for a 3-year term. So I don't really have an answer for you on that as to whether or not this is a vacancy or it is according to the commissioner's appointment. The commissioner's appointed him to a 1-year term. However, that doesn't align with the trust board bylaws. Does that make sense?
And this is one of the reasons we need to update not only our bylaws, but each of the board's bylaws, so they all are married together and have the same language. I will move that we appoint Al to the continuing 2 years of his 3-year term, per the trust board bylaws.
I will second that motion.
Moving on, compensation, or do you want me to continue on, or do you want to hold the vote on
I
each
would
of them?
request
Sorry.
a vote.
Okay.
Okay, the motion been made and second to appoint Al Christofferson to the Delaware County Trust Board. Is there any discussion or comment, Debbie? Do you have anything?
Oh, that would be wonderful.
So, he's asking that you consider his appointment for a full 3-year term. So does that mean 3 more years or 2 more years?
He's been on for 1.
He's already been on for 1. Okay, so it's gonna be basically a 3-year term, 1 year's already gone through. Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Al Christofferson to the Delaware County Trust Board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same, motion carries. Okay,
And as far as these commissioner appointments, if this is something you want to discuss later, or if you want to do that now, if you would just let me know, so I could let each board manager know that they need to contact this specific commissioner to attend the meetings, or to send the agenda to.
And since we have a new commissioner and we have this list for the first time, what I would suggest is next week, let's go ahead and officially choose and talk about who's going to be the liaison
okay.
contact.
Certainly, and so I will bring you a different list, because this does not show all of the boards, this is simply the boards with vacancies or expirations. So I will bring you a different list, basically outlining each of the boards,
Sounds
and
good.
then you can fill those in. Okay, well, I'll get that to you before next week, so you have time to look it over, but, okay. Second one, compensation. There's 4 expired positions, but I have not received any response from any of these folks. So I can simply re-advertise this, unless any of you you know, if any of these individuals had spoken to you or anything, you know, that they would like to stay. But I will simply re-advertise for these 4 positions.
Did you use the listserv?
I did, yeah.
Perfect, I know
I
that
did.
gets to a lot of
And,
people.
I'm gonna put it up on the website as well.
Perfect.
So that
Okay.
hitting both of those.
Can I have a comment on that? So I'll resubmit a memo. I wrote a memo on this the first year I was county attorney. The County Compensation Board has appointments by commissioners, but it also has appointments by other elected members on the board. And so first I would recommend, it would make sense to talk to the other folks that are on that board, Nicole,
Okay.
and see where they are, if they're gonna do appointments. Here's the issue we've had with this. The statute makes very clear that when the public members that are appointed by the commissioners are supposed to be on a rotating basis. We're not supposed to be reappointing 3 or 4 people every year. It's supposed to be, the first time it's formed, the commission can do up to 3 public members. One is for 1 year, one is for 2 years, and one is for 3 years, so that each year, one of those members is expiring and they're either reappointed or someone else is appointed. Every year we've done this, we've had this discussion, and every year we've done this, we've been appointing, you guys have been appointing them for 1-year terms. And every year I've been telling you, no, you can't do that. The statute specifically says they need to be rotating, and so when you put somebody on there, they need to be on there for a 3-year term. What's happening when you reappoint somebody, you reappoint new people for 1-year terms, number 1 is, you're not getting continuity that I think you need. Number 2, you're not actually doing the term that the statute tells you to do. And number 3, basically what's happening is you're having, it's basically like you've got at-will appointees that you can then either keep or get rid of the next year. And I think there's a reason the statute is designed the way it is, and that is so that citizen input to elected official salaries is they can get on there and they can say what they think candidly to us without fear that they're going to be pushed off that board. They're on there for 3 years. And I think they're going to have experience and continuity because we may have turnover in our office. So I would urge you this year, since we apparently don't have any appointments that are carrying over, that you appoint 1 person for 1 year, 1 person for 2 years, and 1 person for 3 years, and then we stick to the rotation that the statute tells us to do. And then, also, the problem we have is these other elected officials going, oh, I didn't realize I could appoint somebody. I'm the only one that doesn't appoint somebody. So I would recommend Nicole go ahead and prime that pump a little with all of them.
Okay.
And I don't recall specifically, I can look it up, whether their terms are multi-year terms or whether they are a 1-year term. But I can send you the statute. And I wrote a memo on this, I'll resend it to the commission. But it really is important, I think, to follow what the statute says because there's a continuity and a citizen input that comes out of that that's important.
So after that, say we do this, then what would be the term of that appointment?
Well, so
you're gonna do something for 1, 2, and 3 years.
correct.
As their term expires, then what would it be after that?
Then each time you reappoint a new person, it's for a 3-year term.
A 3-year term?
Yes. And so that's, we should have been on that right now, but hasn't happened, so.
And we have actually, I have a list here of, this was from a few years ago. I have a couple of lists here from old board appointments, and we have some county compensation folks who were on it for 3, appointed for 3. And then this one for compensation, this one for 2 years and 3-year terms. So I think we've been doing that, but I think what we had is just some confusion with folks who have moved or who didn't come to meetings and not realizing what their terms were. So, yeah, I think Corey is right. We need to make sure that folks know. But I think we've been doing it correctly. I think there's just been some confusion. So I think this new process will help clear that up so that people won't be confused.
Sure.
Well, at the organizational meeting last year and the year before, I made a point of specifically saying, tell me who is on for the 1-year term, the 2-year term, the 3-year term, who expires when? No one can tell me. And so that needs to be clarified, and I think we need to follow it.
I agree, we need the clarification. And to maybe have at those meetings who is on, because nobody remembers just off the top of their head. But to have that at the meeting would be a good idea.
And I do keep a spreadsheet of everyone's terms and their expiration, so I'll send that on to you. And I do have on here Kyle Hopstead, whose term actually expired 2017. It just was never filled. Because I do recall this conversation that the folks that can bring on a citizen, Doug Ellis, Val Hornsfeld, Wynn Meehan, Corey Swanson, and then each of the 3 commissioners have the ability, if I'm understanding this correctly, to nominate, if you will, a citizen to be on the compensation board.
I can't.
You cannot.
No.
Okay.
So the other member who may be on is the justice of the peace, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
not all 4. It's of the let's see how this works. JP, clerk and recorder, clerk of court, sheriff, county attorney. So of those 5, I believe 3 are members. It's basically who volunteers, and that can change year to year.
Okay.
So 3 of the 5 are members, if that makes sense.
So
I'll have to look, I'll resend it. But I know if any of those are members, they can appoint, but I can't. And maybe I'm required to be on every year, I'm not sure. I'll resend it, the memo.
okay. So I will hold on the compensation board until I get feedback. Okay. I won't advertise for that position. Moving on, tax appeal board. I have 1 expiration but no response. I can try him again. I know, he's not been well, so I don't want to push on him too much. So I may just re-advertise that one.
Sounds good. Can we go back to the county compensation
sorry.
board for just a second? No, it's not you, it's me. Just to bring you up to speed, Daryl, a couple years ago, we had different elected folks who were inviting different people to different compensation board meetings. So in 1 year, we had 3 or 4, and we had different people at each one appointed by that particular elected official. So what we did as a commission is we said, okay, so we're gonna follow the same process for transparency purposes with all the electeds on the compensation board, not to control who they were appointing, but so that we knew who that person was. There was also confusion that 2 people had appointed the same person. So it was just for clarity. I think that's important to continue. So if you would send an email to, or look at what you have for who was appointed by the different other electeds, and then maybe send an email and just ask them, are you going to ask this person again? So that we have that for the record.
Okay.
And then that way, when the public says, well, who was appointed by so-and-so, we have an answer for them.
Okay.
Thanks.
Moving on to fair. I have 2 expirations, only 1 request, or 2 responses, but only one is requesting to stay, and that's Michelle Rouser. She has been on the board for, I think she just finished her 2nd year.
Was that a 2-year term?
It was a 2-year term,
Okay.
because she was filling out, I don't recall whose term, I'm sorry, but she was filling out a term for someone else when she stepped into that position. And so
Okay.
now, 3 years would be acceptable.
I will move that we appoint Michelle Rouser to the Fair Board for a 3-year term.
Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Motion been made, second to appoint Michelle Rouser for a 3-year term for the Fair Board. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. Vote is to approve Michelle Rouser for a 3-year term on the Fair Board. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
So I will advertise for this remaining vacancy. Mosquito Board in Townsend, 3, well, essentially 2 expirations. We still are carrying over a vacancy from last year. But I have not received a response from these individuals or from anyone to serve, so I can re-advertise there.
Would you also re-advertise Three Forks Mosquito as well?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, and that one, the only member I had, the reason it's not on this board, the only member I had on there was Commissioner Slifka, and so I just automatically put Commissioner Fulford into that position, but we really should have a citizen, or 2, 3, 5 would be good. But yes, thank you for reminding me of that.
Should I just get elected into a position?
You do, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You won the lottery.
You are a one-man show with the Three Forks Mosquito Board. So get out there and prod some people to, you know.
And no pressure.
Very good.
Let's see, museum. I have 4 expirations and I received 4 responses. And these are the staggered terms, according to their time in office so far. So Keith Kirscher for 3 years. I think this will be his, possibly his 4th term on the museum, and the same with Helen Turcott for 3 years, Brian Kimpton, 3 years, and Ross Johnson for 2 years.
I will move that we appoint Keith Kirscher to a 3-year term on the museum board, Helen Turcott to a 3-year term on the museum board, Brian Kimpton to a 3-year term on the museum board, and Ross Johnson to a 2-year term on the mosquito board. Excuse me, museum board for all of those. Wouldn't that be a
Getting on the
surprise?
mosquito board, huh?
Yeah, well, I need somebody.
That's the way to do it, isn't it?
So, and then I'm assuming that these folks are expressing an interest to stay on this board.
Yep, and I did receive their letters of interest, and I'm so sorry, I just realized I did not put them in your packet.
Okay.
But I did receive letters of interest from each of these 4.
All right. All right, I'll second the motion that we retain Keith Kircher, Helen Turcott, Brian Kimpton, and Ross Johnson for their respective terms on the museum board.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Keith Kirscher, Helen Turcott, Brian Kimpton to 3-year terms, and Ross Johnson to a 2-year term on the museum board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same, motion carries.
Moving on to weed, there will be 3 vacancies, or 3 terms expiring. Those belong to Nathan Costo, Don Pettinger, and, sorry. Oh, Joe Gill. Are the 3 expiring terms on the weed board. I have letters of interest from Michael Santee, Peter Reese, Nathan Costo, and Don Hettinger. And I also have these letters of interest, they are in your packet there.
I guess I request I just have some more time to research this a little more, maybe talk with these folks before I make a decision on that.
Okay. Since we'll be talking about our liaison, liaison-ing with those boards, we could just talk about it next week if
Sure.
that works for you.
Yeah.
Okay, that gives you plenty of time to contact them.
You bet.
And Jessica too,
Yeah, and Jessica, yeah,
yeah,
should have included that.
all right.
Moving on then, last one, solid waste. I have 1 expiring term and 1 response to fill that term, and that's from John Hahn. And this will be, I didn't put his time on there. This will be John, he has been on for 3 years now, so he's done his 1-year term. This will be his 3rd term, is what I'm trying to say. So he would be eligible for the 3-year term limit.
I I'd be happy to move on this one, if you like. I move that we appoint John Hahn to a 3-year term on the Solid Waste Board.
And you said it'd be a 3-year term?
A 3-year term.
3-year term, yeah, you know, John's done a good job in the past, and he's still interested, you know. I also think it's important to keep his continuity from things that we've been doing here, going forward, so I would second the motion that, for John Hahn to have a 3-year term on the solid waste board.
Motion's been made, second to approve John Hahn for a 3-year term on the solid waste board. All in favor?
Aye.
Both same, motion carries.
Also not on here, but just so you're aware, the Broadwater County City of Townsend Recreation Board has 2 expiring terms. The rec board hasn't met for, I think, a month and a half now, so those folks, without having a board manager, I didn't contact them, and I didn't contact the chairperson to let them know of these vacancies, so that's on me. So I will advertise for those positions as well as contact those 2 individuals whose terms are expiring. One is a city rep and one is a county rep.
Could we take care of that maybe next week too?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
I have a question on that. I was told that you're a board member on that, Nicole?
Correct.
How, are you able to do that with your job?
I don't know. I think so. I mean, if I'm volunteering, you know, it's a volunteer position. I'm not being paid to serve on the recreation board.
But, so is this different than other boards that you coordinate? Because you coordinate all these boards.
Yes. You know, I'm the secretary on the tax appeal board. My position with the planning board, I suppose, as the planner, I'm the liaison to the planning board.
Are you actually a board member on the?
Not on the planning board.
Okay.
No, I'm not a board member.
So what is your thought? Does it feel, I mean, is it putting you in a bad spot to be on that board? Are you concerned about it?
On the recreation board?
Yeah.
No,
Why not?
I am not. I'm not sure why I'm not.
Okay. It seemed odd when I heard that you were the coordinator for all the boards and you're also a member of that board. So I just wanted to see if that is something that you want to keep with, or
Mm-hmm.
the commission has any concerns about it.
Yeah, and if there is ever concerns, you know, I would still participate with the recreation board as just a citizen member, if there was ever an issue with it.
So we had a letter of interest from Jeannie Steele for the planning board. Is
Oh, good, okay.
Is that,
We do have one vacancy there. Ron Elliott resigned before his term expired, and I had not seen that letter, but I had heard of that. So yeah, you can certainly make that motion to put her in to fill out Ron's term, or, well, I think that's what you should do. I think you should put her in to fill out Ron's term, not to appoint her to a 1 year or 2 year term. Does that make sense?
How long is Ron's term left?
Stand by, let me find my list. Ron's term would expire this year, so it really, I guess it's irrelevant because she would be a new member. Anyway, she would have a 1 year term to complete Ron's term would be 1 year for her anyway.
He expires,
2019.
2019. Okay. All right. So I would move to appoint Jeannie Steele to fill out the remaining 1 year of Ron Elliott's term on the planning board.
I don't know who this is. Who's this?
Jeannie Still?
Jeannie Steele, yeah.
Yeah, she is a realtor here in town.
Okay.
Lived in the county for several years.
That's about the third.
Right.
Probably 12 years, 10.
It's been a while, huh?
9 years.
And speaking from past experience in my work, you know, so closely with the planning board, it's invaluable to have a realtor on there, so that's a really exciting opportunity, I guess, to have a realtor and have their perspective, because when we're going through and planning these subdivisions, it really is nice to have their perspective, because they see things a little differently than maybe we will. You know, we try to keep someone from the ag community business owners and realtors are really what we like to have on there. We would love to have anybody volunteer to be a member, but, and Ron Elliott, was on there previously and he resigned.
Right.
And he was a realtor.
He was a realtor.
He was,
He would
yeah.
be replacing that position. She chairs the Board of Health right now, or this past year she has, and been quite effective in that position.
And you talked with her, Mike? Or she sent you a letter, or how old are you?
She sent a letter,
Did she?
an email.
I don't need email.
And she,
That'll change hopefully
Yeah.
soon. Yeah. You know, and we can table that if you want. Do you have a meeting between now and next week?
okay, I'll print that email out for him, get it to you, and table it.
Do that, please.
So I'll bring that forward next week when we do this, okay?
Did you get the letter of interest from?
I did
Judy?
not.
I think I forwarded it to you, but it might have
Did
been
you?
Friday after you left.
Okay. That's my emails, that's okay. I'll bug you when we come back up if I don't see it.
Perfect.
So are these just the boards that we have vacancies on right now?
That's correct.
Okay.
So Board of Health is no vacancies?
I didn't have any vacancies on that one.
Right, good.
And I know that there, in the past, the LAC, it's been discussed if that was to be staffed, if you will, you know, through the county, or if they're doing it on their own. I don't have any information. The only information I have is Mary Ellen Schnurr. Is she the chairperson?
She is, we did a resolution a
Okay.
couple of years ago, and you might not have gotten it with the change. But we had set that up.
Oh, okay,
Per, I think it was a new requirement from the state.
okay,
See if I can find that for you, but I think it's a resolution,
okay,
yeah. So there might be something we need to do next week on that too.
okay.
We're gonna be here in front of you guys in the next couple of weeks too, the LAC and stuff with things.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
excellent.
I'm not sure if next week or the week after. But
Yeah.
on the agenda.
Yeah, I think you're right, I think it's next week. Yeah, thank you.
This will be with your peers program?
And we'll also have that information in there with this, it's the LAC. That's why I gave that information, so you have a heads up, you guys can read it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also talked to Allison, who went through her facilitators training at Extension. She was here for her last update in December and shared that. She said she would be happy to conduct a board training on how to conduct meetings, how to maintain civility, how to direct the conversation, that kind of thing. And then with this session, I'm not sure we'll be able to get Dan Clark here, but I was wondering about maybe contacting maybe our association president, Jim Hart, or Mike McGinley from Beaverhead County, or one of the Lewis and Clark commissioners to come in and talk about the laws, what they need to do as far as minutes and agendas and posting and all that good stuff.
I think that's a good idea. Also, from our training, remember the book that MSU publishes?
Yeah,
I think that would be great for each one of these boards to have.
I agree.
Be a great guideline for them to follow. Everybody's should be singing off the same page, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
Definitely.
so we
It's a good idea.
have to order those and from MSU, what we have to do.
Yeah.
Laura, what are you hoping to have that training?
As soon as we can get it coordinated, so it'll take us a couple of weeks for sure, but yeah, we'll make sure everybody knows. We should get bylaws back from everybody so that we have something to work from. So we have a little bit of homework to do on the backside before we can actually have the training.
The trust board is working on updating their bylaws over the last few months, but I've asked them to hold off until the board training.
Oh,
There's
okay.
no sense spending time on it now until we have the board training. So, let me know. Thank you.
Okay.